I'm going to introduce our speaker. I'm really excited that he's with us today. Ted Corcoran is a veteran and a documentarian and a very good friend of Tuesdays with Tillis, who continues to move my heart and teach me so much. He just came back from Portland, and he is going to show us some videos and talk to us about exactly what is happening out there. And I am going to turn this over to him.
I appreciate that so much. And I was telling Karen this before, I'm really excited to speak to all of you because we've been doing this for so long, and I consider us experts when it comes to this. And so what I want to do is kind of unpack what you're seeing on social media and through the media to put things in perspective and kind of take a step back and kind of look at how these events are progressing each night. To give you just a real quick background, what happened was totally spur of the moment. Wednesday night, I just saw what was happening and escalating in Portland, and I had to do something. And I've, been active in a lot of the movements and actions that we had in Raleigh, and knowing that and kind of having that experience, I wanted to go and see it firsthand. My followers crowdsourced me a ticket to Portland, jumped in a plane, and was hitting the ground Thursday night. And that's where I'm going to go and start. I'm going to share my screen, and I want you to kind of get a full understanding of what's going on. So here's a little bit of background. So they've been doing this now at this point for 60 straight days. So you have an extremely experienced group of protesters that are doing this night in and night out. I have this map over here, and what I wanted you to see is just the lay of the land. The first big piece of disinformation is that this is raging throughout Portland. That is completely false. This is taking place between basically two intersections, but basically like a 4-square block area around the U.S. District Courthouse, a county justice center, and 2 parks. These parks, if I was trying to compare it to something in Raleigh, a little bit bigger than Moore Square. Like it would be like 2 more squares a piece in where you would see this camp. So the first thing I want to show is I showed up early on Thursday around 6 o'clock and went to the camp. So this is a permanent, semi-permanent group that is there throughout the day. So the first thing that I noticed is that these are people that have been doing this for a very long time. This isn't something that they've done in the past 50 days. This is something that they might be doing over the past couple of years. I know that we've been hearing a lot about riot ribs. Riot ribs is feeding all the protesters, and it's actually going on during the day. And so what you're also seeing is that there's a really large homeless population in Portland. And so these people are taking care of the homeless population during the day. And what that's doing is gaining community support. It's almost like I would call them like Robin Hood. They're out there trying to go and take care of the people that are in need. This is all taking place right here at the camp. So I know what everyone is kind of seeing on social media is the fence. And so I want to show you the fence without a crowd of people in front of it. And the other thing I want you to notice as far as this video goes is that this is about 6 p.m. No one's paying attention to that fence. That fence is being completely ignored. Everybody is mainly in the camp. So this is timelines for Thursday. If you see right over here in the Raleigh area, the NAACP had an event that night where it was trying to refocus the message of what's been happening the past couple nights. And it's something that we would normally see in Raleigh. And I'll show you a video of what it looks like.
Together, let our voices be known. Let our voices be heard that we are here and we're not going to be silent anymore. We're not going to be silent anymore.
That's very familiar to us. That's something that could have been Raleigh. That could have been what we normally see as far as an action is concerned. This is 7:35 at night, daytime, organized by the NAACP. So what starts happening once you start getting a little bit more dark, as far as the night is concerned, that group is still over here at that rally point, away from the fence, not paying attention to it. This is where you're seeing a lot of like the positive things, the cell phone lights. And so here's a view from the crowd. Chanting the hands up, please don't shoot me. You're seeing that in front of the Justice Building. I'm going to pan over. That's the fence over there in the corner. Again, no one is paying attention to that fence. And the reason that that's happening is because there's an organized event that's being led by somebody in front of that Justice Building. Everyone's attention is focused on that. And that's where the positive messages can really come out. And so that's the good. That's what I really took from that is, okay, up until around 10 o'clock, it would be what we would normally see as a peaceful protest. So everyone's asking about the moms. The moms are located in a bunch of different points. And so one thing that we're seeing at these protests is the danger of vehicles coming into the area and hitting protesters. And so the moms start going and blocking off certain access points where that might be a danger. So that's the first role of the Wall of Moms, is to protect the perimeter of the overall protest. And so this is a video of that line right here on Southwest Madison Street, blocking access to where the protest is going to go and take place. And I'll show you a video of that. Where that previous video was, that's the Justice Center where the spotlight is. A lot of moms. And this is another view for taking a step back. This is something that they started doing in order to go and prevent vehicles from coming through, is they'll physically block it with other vehicles. So you see the motorcycle, there's a group of motorcycle people that come and block off these intersections. They actually brought a truck to go and block that intersection. And that's, again, one of the dangers that we're talking about nowadays when it comes to peaceful protests, is people in vehicles coming in and trying to hit protesters. So that's the famous Wall of Moms that we talk about. Now at this point, there's no organization when it comes to the event itself. It's kind of people are on their own to go and kind of wander about and find a place to be. So let me go and start showing you kind of how this starts de-escalating pretty quickly. Okay, so the Wall of Moms moves, or there might be a second group of Wall of Moms, and they move right here in this area in the fence. The corners, and so what you find out too is that there's not a lot of space on these roads, but when you get to an intersection, you just naturally have more space to gather. So groups are starting to gather at these two intersections right here. So this is the Wall of Moms directly in front of the fence on the south of the street. So what you're hearing now too is that it's no longer someone leading the crowd, it's the crowd leading itself. So you can hear that chant in the background. This is where you can tell things are going to go and start escalating at this point. The tone has changed completely. There's a lot more anger in the air. People are basically kind of getting ready for battle. But I'll go and just replay this a second. You can kind of hear that overall chant going on in the background. Okay, and the other thing that we know about really big crowds is that it's very easy to get lost into a big crowd. It's very easy to go and kind of like duck out and hide yourself. And so what starts happening at this point, and you'll see this in the next video, is that protesters start throwing fireworks towards the fence. It's a back and forth, and then immediately comes the gas. And so I'll go and start showing this. You're seeing laser pointers over near where that big red flag is. You're seeing people flashing, strobe lights at the federal officers. There may be a firework that goes off near the corner. It's basically starting to devolve into chaos at this point. And you don't know what everyone's intentions is in the crowd. And so it's clear that there's instigators in the crowd. What usually happens too is this first wave of gas is going to go and kind of knock out the less committed people that are in the crowd also. And so you know that at this point, the people are really kind of remaining around are looking to push back, and as far as like going and like really kind of engaging as far as the crowd is concerned. I'll keep letting this go. So that's heavy gas. So there's two different kinds of gases that you're seeing. You're seeing kind of like normal, like pepper spray, like that we would be used to. And then there's another gas called CS gas that we would use in the military. That's CS gas. And you can tell the difference. Like pepper is, we're very familiar with like, pepper and kind of like that like flavor to it. CS feels like battery acid. It's like breathing like a battery acid in the air. So you can tell which different kinds, and it will usually kind of come out as kind of like this really thick smoke. This is a couple hours later where you're seeing the gas on the side, and I'm going to go and show another one here. It's where those mothers were standing. You're going to see like someone holding up a peace sign. That's one of the wall of moms. You also have to be careful. They're able to go and shoot these really far. So I thought I was in a safe spot, and you're going to see that one came in extremely close. It ricochets off the ground. There's a lot of different things that are going on as far as like this dynamic goes. So you'll see that peace sign kind of near the umbrella. And like the things that like, and these are things that are meant to go and get us worked up. So you're hearing the drums in the background, and you're seeing this constant cycle of escalation go further and further and further down. At this point on Thursday, I just flew in. This was me just kind of getting my bearings. I was with another veteran, and I didn't want to go any further or get any closer, just out of fear of jeopardizing her safety too. I didn't want her following me to get closer to this event. So this is the time where I packed it up and decided, okay, it's time to leave. What happened shortly after that is that they keep on thinning out the crowd every time they put out gas and every time they put out these flashbangs, to a point where it's a manageable crowd that they can leave that fence area and start clearing out streets. And so what's happening, if you kind of look at that map, people are constantly flowing backwards towards aid. So this is kind of like a good point to kind of talk about what support systems are there in place. And so they have makeshift aid vans ready to go and pull protesters out if they're injured at all. This van was to go and report police violence. That woman that you see there right behind it is actually with the ACLU. That's vitally important too. The legal observers. Having people able to go and witness what's going on and kind of see the events of what's taking place that night. I'll kind of pause for a second because things shift very drastically when it comes to Friday. And I wanted to kind of show, it follows the same pattern, but it was definitely escalated a lot quicker by the federal forces on Friday. So I'll just pause real quick. Does anybody have any questions, or does anybody want to kind of like unpack anything that I just went through right there in that first kind of day of events?
Are these instigators that are coming out in the darkness of night? Are these?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I need.
And so what's happening is, so that rally that you saw first, where everyone was holding up the cell phones, they were doing the general speaking. those are going to be like your general public. They came there for that event, and then they've been noticing that this thing's been de-escalating like very, very quickly. And so by 11 o'clock around, you have a shift change. I think that's the best way of explaining it, is then you start having small groups of people with different intentions, different motivations filtering in. And then the normal day-to-day protesters that we would normally see at like any of our events start filtering out at 11 o'clock. And you start, and with that, yeah.
So are the moms staying like once it starts to escalate too? Or are they getting out of there, trying to get out of there? Just curious.
And so they're there to a point, I think, and what you'll see with Friday is probably like a better example of how that really plays out. I think you have different tiers of mom volunteers. You have some of those, so like those women that were lined up as far as blocking off the road. I think that those people were the ones that agreed, hey, you know what, we'll go and do this from a safe distance in order to go and protect this area. And then you have some of your really dedicated hardcore people that are going up into that fence line. Friday, I get a lot closer and I have some kind of videos where I can show kind of like upfront confrontations. I think pretty early on, once it starts getting really nasty at that fence, they're retreating back for their own safety. And that was my biggest concern too, because I was going to meet up with a bunch of veterans organizations, and I wanted to make sure that we had a really good safety plan in place. I didn't think I was going to be able to do that within like a 24 to 48 hour notice. And so I didn't want to put anybody else's like safety at risk. It's very much a mob mentality. And it's very hard not to get caught up in the moment. It's definitely being escalated, and you'll hear it more coming up with the next day. And what happens in these situations is that you look at the person next to me or next to you and you say, okay, am I going to be the first person to back down? Or am I going to be the first person to take a step backwards? And it's almost like a bravery test, where, hey, if this person's not going to do it, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to hold strong. And I didn't want that happening with a group of veterans and then having somebody get like critically injured, especially when it comes to what you see the next day. So that was tame. And as far as the first day of events goes, it was supposed to be originally, that was the day that they announced that the federal agents couldn't go and fire on the press or neutral observers like the ACLU. And you can tell that they're indiscriminately firing into the crowd. They don't know who they're aiming at. They don't know who's who as far as this goes. So I showed up at like 9:30 on Friday, and what you saw was like a traditional march moving into the area. And I'll go and show that really quick. Something again that we're very familiar with in Raleigh. Something that we would normally see. If I didn't tell you, I could have told you that this is Raleigh, you might have believed it. That was leading into the area. So that was actually on this road right here going in. And where you knew that it was, again, it escalated from the night before, the moms came marching in, and I don't know how else to describe it, but like before a boxing match, it was like, you know, like the boxer like coming down the aisle and entering the ring. You know, kind of like see this, like the seas parted for these women.
This is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like.
These are the positive images that I think do the most good. Showing unity, showing peaceful marching into an area. Also this. And so again, they do a great job with this. It does great on social media. I think it really kind of resonates a lot too. This is, I know we see them chanting with the lights, but this is a moment of silence with the lights. And that is kind of flipping the script. We're seeing so much noise. We're seeing so much action, so much movement in these videos. And this is people standing still, perfectly quiet. It resonates, and it's something that really, really impacts a lot of people that we need to go and pull on our side. So this is where I am definitely not going to both sides this, because you just saw, this is at 10:50 what you just saw. Within 10 minutes, just because they were rattling the fence and just pushing on it, they started going and putting the gas out. So you can see them rattling the fence. And that's the gas that's slowly seeping into the crowd. Now, someone asked as far as like the moms and like where they're deployed. This is that same exact spot 2 minutes later. And so this is a good example. I don't know who this person is. He might have perfectly great intentions. I don't know what's in his backpack. I don't know where he's coming from, what he's doing. And I don't want to definitely accuse anybody of anything like wrongdoing or anything like that. But that's the problem, is that that person in that black mask, in that black backpack, I don't know who they are. And that may be someone who is launching fireworks into the crowd versus this wall of moms who is doing a non-aggressive, passive resistance in regards to that fence. And that's the challenge that you face with all these events. Everyone knows what's going to happen next. It's going to go and de-escalate, and it's going to go and both sides are going to go back and forth as far as like attacking that fence. And this is, so you see them right there on that fence. This is within less than 15 minutes. Those bangs, those are flash bangs that they're throwing out into the crowd. The federal agents are. You're seeing water bottles thrown over. And then you're hearing the pops. And so those are the quote unquote non-lethal projectiles. All this is happening in this area right over here. And it's going up and down the street. It's a lot to kind of digest. And so I'm just going to keep on showing you some more actions that are taking place. You're going to hear a lot of popping. That's them shooting pepper balls towards the protest. This is where the danger starts taking place. And this is where you're seeing the injuries take place. And actually, I'll show you what it looks like when one of these pepper balls looks like. That's the little projectiles that are coming at you. They're also doing kind of like bigger rounds, and they're doing them at extremely close ranges. It keeps on going back and forth. This keeps on escalating and escalating and escalating. When you see this gas, and I'm going to go and show this in the next video, you see like the clouds of it. In reality, what's happening is like 50, 100 feet outside of this, that gas is in the air. The clouds are just it being extremely dense. And again, they're trying to just push people away from that fence. So I had a gas mask. I like a full-blown military grade gas mask. The little N95 masks are not going to help as far as this is concerned. Even some of those like heavy respirator masks are not going to help, because it's going to get into your eyes and it's going to go and really kind of do some pretty decent damage to you. Even just a little bit seeped into my mask, and I had to go and retreat back to like a side road to go and get cleared out and get kind of taken care of. So that's where the first aid and kind of having people kind of away from the action that people can kind of retreat to helps out the most. Again, at this point, it's just a back and forth. It's the later it's getting, as the crowd keeps on getting thinned out, you're having the more extreme people there at this point. I got a view where I was able to go and actually kind of see what was happening behind the fence. They were shooting fireworks, so I will definitely not cover that fact. Again, you don't know who's doing this. You don't know who's engaged, and anybody can walk up at this point. Anybody can come off the streets and go and start joining this and being a part of this. There were issues. So one thing that like really bothered me the most was I was positioned over here in this area with a bunch of reporters, and somebody got hit with a projectile right up against the fence. And so they brought the person back to right about here. And they were calling for medics. They were calling for the aides to come down the road. And they did open fire on these people that were treating this person with pepper balls or whatever projectile that they were putting out there. You see this person on the ground. They're all trying to help out. Sorry for the language. It was definitely a hot moment. And so, and you pick this up immediately. You always need to have your eyes everywhere, especially from the direction that a lot of this action is coming. It's a wild, wild, wild situation that's out there. And then finally, like the fires thing, they like to go and talk about the fires. There was one moment where like I did walk through one of the fires, and it was actually at the intersection. It was not them trying to burn down the building. And so what you see here is actually a really brave moment. Full disclosure, what's happening too is that this is taking place at like 11, 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. This video that you're going to see is at 2 o'clock in the morning. There's a lot of kids that are running around that have nothing better to do, that may or may not be drinking at this point also, that are there to join the party and think that like there's no activism going on whatsoever at this point. And so someone started a fire in the middle of this intersection, and one of the regular protesters went and took a fire extinguisher and put it out. They were not happy with Also, you can see in that video, there's a lot of people without masks. That's a huge red flag. You see somebody without a mask on, like usually you would think that like covering up your face is something that they would want to do, but it proves that you are not supposed to be there. Because one thing that they, out of all this chaos, the one thing that was really focused on was wearing a mask. To the point like where like I was kind of laughing at myself. I'm like, I'm glad that they're concerned about safety and as far as like spreading COVID-19. I'm like looking around at like all the other dangers out there. It was kind of like the least of my worries because I'm so used to wearing a mask. But it proves that you came down there spur of the moment and you're not prepared, and you are kind of on a different level as far as like messaging is concerned. So I'll kind of just go through some kind of like quick takeaways. It's a tale of two rallies or a tale of two protests. When you have an organized protest with an organized time, with organized speakers, things are under control. You're able to go and push the narrative. And it's, again, we're talking about mob mentality here. And so one thing that we do very well is we build people up, and then we, I don't want to say bring them down, but we turn down the temperature, where we give them action items to go and do. We sing peaceful protest songs. We acknowledge each other. We go and focus on community as a whole. That's happening there between the hours of like, let's say like 7 and 11. Those are the great positive moments to go and take away. We also have the moms and we have the veterans putting up these walls. That speaks to our protective instinct, which is something that's positive, it's something that changes the narrative. It doesn't allow the both sides conversation to happen, where it's, we are peaceful protesters that are staging an intervention in regards to this. They are using violence against us.